making. It's an event designed to determine bragging rights between the four-wheel drive trucks and the two-wheel drives in a free-for-all dash for cash. Scott Taylor in a two-wheel drive grabbed the lead at the start, but Johnny Greaves, with all four wheels digging into the Crandon soil, was coming fast. But could he close the gap in time? Scott Taylor's answer was an emphatic no, and he became the first and only two-wheel drive machine to ever win the Governor's Cup in the 9 previous years it has been run. It was a history-making moment, not lost on the 4-time Pro 2 champion. Can he repeat? We'll find out today on Speed. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the 10th annual Potowatomi Precision Geared Governor's Cup from Crandon International Off-Road Raceway in Crandon, Wisconsin. Great to have you with us. Greg Kramer, joined as always by Larry Rice and Ken Stout. And this is going to be an absolutely fascinating event. It compiles four-wheel drive trucks, two-wheel drive trucks, and that means sportsman true drivers are allowed as well.
Yes, and it's always for bragging rights, plus a lot of money. Huge purse here today, so these guys want to win this as much as any race all year long.
Well, they're out on their early parade lap, sort of a course reconnaissance, and there you see Scott Taylor, by virtue of the win last year, he's first out, champion last year. And it was an absolutely enthralling race, and you can see him doing a little celebrating there with the crowd. Quite understandable. The question is, and we've already posed it, can it happen again? Can a two-wheel drive do it? And you would have to then bet on this gentleman. He was, after all, the first man to do it. And as we mentioned earlier, it was a very special moment, not lost on Scott Taylor. And so we thought we'd take an opportunity a little bit earlier to sit down with Scott and ask him just what it meant.
Unbelievable. I can vividly remember Jeff Dorr saying on the radio about halfway through, he said, you've got I forget the lead even now, but I remember he and I talking, and he says, you've got a certain amount of lead, and I'm thinking, boy, oh boy, when are these guys going to come around me? I know they're coming, and I'm looking out the side, and I can see Johnny over there, and he wasn't gaining on me. And 2 laps to go, and Dorr said to me on the radio, he says, Taylor, I think we're gonna get this. And I said, you know what? I think we are too. And I just couldn't believe it. And when I got that checkered flag and pulled up there, I just thanked the Lord. I thanked my dad. I thought about my dad. I kind of dedicated it to him. And in a 1 minute or 1 second moment, and then I pulled up on there and got all the attention and all the things that came with that race. And it was unbelievable to be able to go out there and beat the four-wheel drives.
To beat the four-wheel drives and to bring home, what, something like on the order of 23,000 plus bucks?
Yeah, that $23,000 check didn't hurt a thing, but he did do a terrific job, as witnessed by the fact that it's only been done one time in 9 years.
Well, it's time to take a look at our Nissan race analysis for the Governor's Cup Challenge.
Yes, and they are going to be running the long course, 1.75 miles, a big wide open run down into that first corner, and it's going to be very important to get there first. The four-wheel drives have an advantage there, but after they get there, the two-wheel drive guys have a chance if they can get into turn number 1 first.
You notice the purse, $30,450, and we said that Scott won 23. Plus, you see how it's tilted toward that winner.
That's right, and there's a lot of contingencies and everything else in this purse, so it's a huge, huge amount of money, and they all want to win it.
Well, here's the guy who took second in that race last year, Johnny Greaves, and it certainly wasn't for lack of trying. But you talked about the traffic, and we saw in that replay of the last couple of corners from last year, a couple of lap trucks right in Greaves' way. He had to fight through that sort of thing. Yeah. You've got four wheels, you've got two wheels, and you've got sportsman drivers. Well, we thought we'd visit with some of the drivers earlier and just ask them the generic question. What's it gonna be? Four-wheel drive, two-wheel drive? Who's gonna do it? What has to happen to make it successful?
The four-wheel drives have got four wheels scratching off the corner, digging and moving themselves forward, where we've only got the two. And the only thing that made it, we're faster on a straightaway than the four-wheel drives, and the only thing that made it possible for us to win that is our mile an hour on the straightaway at Crandon on ×2. And that was where we were able to pull out each lap a little bit on the four-wheel drives.
You know, the biggest part is how many trucks are going to be out there to go through to get to the leader. That's what holds you back more than anything. If we can get through the traffic and get a shot at the leader while there's still time, I think we should be in good shape.
my biggest wake-up call was starting right next to a four-wheel drive, and when they threw the green flag, those guys just shot out of a cannon, you know, and with the two-wheel drive, we get a lot of wheel spin that those guys don't get. So I think we're all pretty even when we're running on the top, you know, top speeds, but in and out of those corners, the four-wheel drives are just so amazing. And, you know, someday I think we'll get up there and try that too.
You know, it's kind of a survival race. You survive halfway through that race, and hopefully the idiots have weeded themselves out, and you can go race to the front.
But I'll tell you, you've got to drive over your head. There's no holding back out there. It's a one race. It's not a whole series. So if you're not fully out on that truck, I'll tell you what, you don't have a chance out there. So you're going to see people going as hard as they can and driving over their heads sometimes. But I'll tell you what, that's the only way you're going to win with the Pro 2 is drive as hard as that truck will possibly go and hope it doesn't break.
That's a race where you throw your strategy out the window and you be an animal from start to finish, and you can break in the first 100 feet or crash the truck in the first 100 feet, or you can win the race in the last 50 feet. One way or the other, and you push, shove, throttle, jump, do everything to the most extreme to your ability. When we come up on those Pro 2s, when they start in front of us, it's incredible. We don't lift to try and set them up to make a pass. What we do is we go, we're closing at a certain rate, and we make a judgment call. And if they're in a corner and we have to go on the outside of them, have to go on the inside of them, we might make a mistake. We might make them make a mistake. We might throw the whole race away in that moment. But you know what? If you hesitate for that moment, you are not going to win the big money on the Borg Warner or the Governor's Cup. So you have to be an animal.
Wow, if I'm a two-wheel drive driver, I'm now very worried, but I'm excited as well. That is just phenomenal to hear that.
Well, as he said, there's no point standing, so it all is done in those 10 laps. You go for it, and you make instantaneous decisions, and every one of them is going to be extremely important during these 10 laps.
And this crowd is pumped, because coming up, it's the Potowatomi Precision Gear Governor's Cup from here in Crandon, Wisconsin. Speed Channel's coverage of the Potowatomi Precision Gear Governor's Cup is being brought to you by Lucas Oil, worldwide leader in heavy-duty and high-performance lubricants, and the official oil of championship off-road racing. And by Nissan Shift Performance, the official truck of championship off-road racing. An absolutely immense crowd is on hand, and they know what's about to unfold before them, and a lot of them, I'm sure, saw what happened last year and are pretty jazzed about it. The field right now is going to be returning from the parade lab. Energy's starting to build, Larry.
Yes, it certainly is, and the crowd gets as pumped up for this as the drivers do, because they get to see all the favorites, all the big dogs out here at one time, and they're all scratching to win this huge race.
Now, we want to bring you our BF Goodrich news and notes, and not surprisingly, Larry, it relates to the history of this awesome event.
Yes, this event has been run 9 times previously, and as we told you, Scott Taylor is the only two-wheel drive truck to ever win this event. Rob McCachran has won it 3 times. Jack Flannery won it a couple of times. And Kurt LeDuc is the only guy in that group is a four-wheel drive truck to have won it before. And he wants to come back and do it again this time. He won it 94 and 96. He holds the track record for 10 laps, but Scott Taylor, believe me, he wants to come out of this on top again. And he's given all those other two-wheel drive guys a lot of hope.
And there is a good look at Kurt LeDuc, again, winner in 94 and 96, and he wants to reclaim the rights for the four-wheel drive trucks. Now, speaking of which, let's take a moment and go back and do a mid-season review on our Pro 4 category in championship off-road racing. Brand new venue welcomed them for the opening round in Dresser, Wisconsin. And in the early going, look at this big tumble by 43 LeDuc, and Renazetter almost goes over with him. A little bit later on, the number 86 of Josh Baldwin also had himself an inverted moment. He was able to continue. Jason Baldwin was leading. Wheel comes off. Believe me, this track was brutal on equipment, and Baldwin's feeling the wrath there. And at the very end of it, number 22, Johnny Greaves, beat up, pieces dangling, ends up taking the win. And it was the first of a pretty strong early season run by Johnny. Second round also a Dresser at the start, though. Watch what happens here. Greaves gets in with the inversion, struggles a little bit, and watch for it. Right here, goes to the throttle, a little bit greedy, and around it goes. And now he had to start off with a drive from the back. Then Carl Renazetter was leading, and a wheel came off for Renazetter, and that just parked him right there. And guess who comes by? That is Johnny Greaves. He fought his way back up, slipped by Renazetter, and ends up taking his second consecutive win to start the season. Round 3, the awesome track at Anago. Right off the line, Carl Renesetter, the Lucas Oil truck, the Chevrolet, into the early lead. The battle for second was absolutely awesome. That's Scott Douglas and Kurt Leduc on it, off it, on it, and then problems again for Renesetter as he just absolutely got squirrely and drove off the truck. And Douglas comes sweeping through, picks up the point. Scott Douglas went on to win round 3 at Anago. Now the 4th round was canceled due to just some unbelievable weather, so that brings us up to round 5 at Crandon, and it was probably the greatest last lap we have ever seen in championship off-road racing action. These two, Baldwin and Leduc, were like that for virtually the entire lap. And watch here, in the last, it's not quite done yet. Leduc took a run, but Baldwin was not about to give way and claimed his first win of the season. An absolutely phenomenal race. The next race at Crandon, Kurt Leduc gets a little squirrely here. Watch this, and look what he does to Johnny Greaves intentionally. Greaves right off the track. He came back, but with all the action unfolding behind, Carl Renesetter had a fairly serene drive to the win. And here's Baldwin again going against Kurt Leduc. And watch this as they come in. Boom! He gets into him. Leduc gets forced wide. Baldwin took the spot on the track, but was demoted to position in 5 points in the championship chase. And Kurt Leduc was not well pleased. And that brings us up to our current situation after 6 of 14 rounds in the Lucas Oil Pro Series. Greaves now has a 5-point lead over Leduc, tied with Douglas, as a matter of fact. Renesetter 4th with 11 adrift to Greaves, and Jason Baldwin in the 5th spot. And here's 6th through 8th at this point. But we have had quite literally a slam-bang season to start things off, Larry.
We've seen some terrific racing so far, and we're going to see a lot more before this season's over.
And right here you see Scott Douglas staging up, and look at the ruts that he's carefully avoiding. This is the last race of a busy weekend of racing here, and he's trying to straddle those ruts. Meanwhile, the Pro 2 start a little bit further up. There is the number 77 of Dan Vanden Heuvel. We'll be right back.
Inside every...
Welcome back, everybody, to the Potowatomi Precision Gear Governor's Cup from Crandon International Off-Road Raceway in Crandon, Wisconsin. The crowd is getting a little anxious, I would think, of the Pro 2s, and that includes, I would imagine, a few Sportsman 2 drivers that are willing to give this one a go, are starting to stage up. And we have seen some phenomenal racing in the early part of the season, also from the Pro 2 category. They have put on some great shows. We want to take a moment here before we get underway with the race to step back and take a look at a mid-season review of the Pro 2 category for championship off-road racing. And of course, it all started as well at Dresser, Wisconsin, and it got interesting in a hurry. Watch number 1, Scotty Taylor, coming in here and got a little help, and up and over he went. Now watch this from the number 17 of Renesetter, of just how tough this track is here. Up, down, it was basically a U-shape. Oh, right there, the number 99 of Kevin Probst, he got inverted as well. This was a tough track. Vanden Heuvel got it underneath and then around. Evan Evans picks up the lead, and Vanden Heuvel was not to be denied, ended up taking the win. The first win for Kumho Tires in Pro 2. Great moment. Next race, round 2, also at Dresser, and watch the tangle that evolves here at the start. 17 Renesetter's in it, 99 Probst is in it, 27 Larry Gorley's in it, all there in the back. And just look at this, it is absolutely a thrash down there just trying to get out. But when all the dust settled and everything cleared, and the face we've seen before worked his way up to the front in pretty quick order, and that's the number 1, Scott Taylor. And after a little bump and go, he found himself with yet another win in his remarkable career in Pro 2. Round 3, Anago, Wisconsin, and it is Renesetter leading, Taylor battling. Right to the checkered, over the whoops. This is how it went. And nothing that number 1, Scott Taylor, could do it. And number 17, Carl Renesetter, brought her home. Got a little high. We all thought, well, he's throwing it away here. But he got great fight right on the exit. It was just enough. But look at how close the margin of victory was as Renesetter held on. Very special moment indeed. Again, round 4 canceled due to the weather at Anago, so round 5 at Crandon. We're on board with Carl Renesetter in the early going. Looks pretty smooth, but there went the number 27 of Larry Gorley and just hosed him with mud Corley was able to run out front for a little while, but not for long, as Scott Taylor in that Mobil 1 Ford making the move, slips underneath, picks up the point. Corley did try to stay with him, and in fact did for a little bit, but then he suffered one of those rarities in this type of racing in the Quick and Bright Chevy, a fire. He bailed out, he was fine. But that meant Scott Taylor, thumb up in the air, excited as he got a monkey off his back. He got his first championship off-road racing win at Crandon since the fall of 2001. And that leads us to the most recent race. Round 6 at Crandon. Tommy Bradley got a great start, but then it went bad as he had a huge tumble up and around and over early. He was fine, by the way, but we had a great battle that unfolded. 99 Probst, number 1 Taylor for the lead. You can see a little bit of smoke from Probst's truck. He was starting to lose power. Taylor motored on by, and Taylor going back to back at Crandon, making up for that little bit of a down slump he had with 2 straight wins. And now, after those 6 rounds are complete, Taylor 16 points up on Rennesetter, Vanden Heuvel 3rd, Evans and Probst round up the top 5 in the point scenario at that stage of the championship. And of course, we'll take a look at 6th through 10th. And who would have guessed that 2-time Sportsman 2 champ Tommy Bradley would be that far back in his first season as part of the Quick and Bright Pro 2 team? Not many.
Not many is right. As we take a look at some of the other trucks that are lining up for this big event.
And as we said, it includes Sportsman 2 drivers. There's Mike Savage in his Sportsman 2 Ford. And even though the Pro Light machines are not eligible for this race, we wanted to take a moment and do a mid-season review of the Pro Light division of Championship Off-Road Racing, starting off round 1 at Dresser. 19 trucks funneling through that incredibly tight hairpin turn. We hop on board, as always, with Art Schmidt. And man, this track was brutal. Watch as they come up and over. There's the left-hander, and then it's just a climb. And Rodney Van Eperen and Kyle LeDuc. And LeDuc hits that tire, just rotates right up and over. And Rodney Van Eperen not only scored his first Pro CORR Series win, but he also got the 2nd win ever for Kumho tires in CORR action. Very happy about that. Round 2 also a Dresser. We hop on board the number 36, Rick Huseman, who is chasing down Mark Krieger, the truck in front. This is for the lead, and watch this. Huseman comes up and just slams him, and you thought, wow, what was that all about? Turns out it was a problem for Krieger, who'd had the big backfire and a fire in the engine as a result. And even with the damage to the front of the truck, Rick Huseman went on to claim the win in round 2 at Dresser. Round 3 took us, as always, to Anago, Wisconsin. And Jeff Kincaid, look at the start he got from the 2nd row, splits the 2 guys, one of them having a bit of a rough ride, and Kincaid went on to the lead. Now we hop on board with number 8, Schmidt, as he is running with the number 45 of Rodney Van Eperen, and gets some right there for the 2nd spot. Unfortunately for Van Eperen, cracked motor, obviously losing some serious internals and power, and Kincaid scores yet another win in his amazing career in championship off-road racing action. Round 4 again canceled, so round 5 at Crandon, and it was number 1 Jeff Kincaid coming off of that land rush start into the lead, and it was a lead he was never to lose, although some great battling going on behind him certainly. Kincaid tiptoes over the Rancho jump, takes a look, makes that final turn, and picks up his 2nd consecutive win. Great run in the early season for defending champion Jeff Kincaid. And that leads us to the 6th round, the most recent round, also at Crandon. This one, Steve Federico got a blazing start and leads down through turn 1. Federico was going to hang on, work as hard as he could up at the front for as long as he possibly could. But you can almost hear the Jaws music, and sure enough, there he goes. Number 1, Jeff Kincaid, that Forest County Potowatomi Toyota, just slipping by Federico's Mountain Dew P.F. Chang's truck. And look at this shot. Number 8, Schmidt, watch, right there, the rocket just appeared and then obliterated the camera. And Jeff Kincaid gets his 3rd on the trot and just stretches out his points lead in the Lucas Oil Pro Series Pro Light division after 6 of 14 rounds. There it is. Huseman had been close, but Kincaid now 4 up. Bit of a margin back to Chad Horde, Art Schmidt, then Wutke. And as we take a look at 6 through 10, We go back to Mark Krieger in that 10th spot. So that's a look at all three of our divisions. It's about the midpoint of the season. And we have now, there was the signal. You saw it, 2 minutes to go. So now the drivers starting to get the last preparations done. The window nets in place, make sure the belts are cinched up. This is go time, Larry.
It certainly is. It's time to get it ready. So we'll take a look at that as soon as we come back.
Welcome back to Crandon for the Potowatomi Precision Gear Governor's Cup. We are ready to give you the starting lineup, the crowd on the edge of their seats, and here we go. It is going to be a very stout field indeed, large field, and of course the mix that is making this so exciting. Let's bring you our Nissan starting grid. This is for the pro drivers. 77, Dan Vandenheuvel, the Peugeot Chevy. Scott Taylor, the defending champion in the Mobil 1 Ford. Carl Renesetter, the Lucas Oil Chevy. Kurt Leduc, the Skyjacker Ford. They're in the four-wheel drives. A two-wheel drive, Evan Evans in his Chevy. That's a two-wheel. Johnny Greaves, the Potowatomi four-wheel drive Toyota. Josh Baldwin and Jason Baldwin, both in the four-wheel drive trucks. Also, we have Steve Barlow and Scott Douglas, two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, but both Fords. And now it's time for the FabTech starting grid for the Sportsman 2 drivers. You can take a look. Unfortunately, Ross Hook, by the way, a last-minute scratch. We want to point out a couple of things. One, Carl Renesetter had actually entered both his Pro 2 and his Pro 4 truck. He's opted to go with the Pro 4. And also, you're going to see two drivers that get really a great handicap, and those are the Pro 2 guys that have won a round already this season. They get that start handicap, and as we go green, it is a huge advantage. But you heard him talking about how fast those four-wheel drive trucks get off the line and get out of the turns.
Well, Vandenheuvel and Scott Taylor do get a big advantage. Those four-wheel drive trucks are going to have to catch them and then pass them. So they do have a lot of ground to make up, a lot of time to do it, 10 full laps. But these guys up front in the two-wheel drive trucks, if they are smooth and do everything perfectly, it has been proven that you can beat those four-wheel drive trucks.
Well, we saw it happen last year, but look at the ground that these guys have made up already, coming after them and coming after them hard. Those four-wheel drive trucks are already making up a lot of ground. Taylor, right now, taking a run around the outside of Dan Vandenheuvel, but right there, Baldwin. Then it's Leduc already, then Renesetter, then Douglas. And these guys have wasted no time and have closed up just immediately, quickly. And these two guys, what a save!
Yeah, Vandenheuvel looked like he was going to go up and over that bank and lose it, but he was able to pull back out in front of Scott Taylor. Meantime, look at this. The four-wheel drive trucks have already pulled right up behind him. That's Jason Baldwin right behind Scott Taylor. Jason
is all over the back of them already, and you heard Taylor talking about straight line speed. Right here is where it's going to pay off, and it does there. Oh, they hit! Oh, Baldwin, I think, just got into the back, and Taylor, I don't know if he made it out of that.
No, I think he's down in that gully. There's a gully right there where they go down that down in the bottom, and there's a big gully. He went off the racetrack.
Oh, and Vandenheuvel, sorry, Larry, but Vandenheuvel is pulled off to the side. Used up maybe too much motor too fast.
Well, that's a tough break for them.
And amazingly, Taylor did survive that, but now he's third.
Well, with all that dust, I thought he was off the track and down in the gully, but he came through that thing and wound up in third, which is really a heck of a job for him to stay on the racetrack.
Well, I noticed, too, there are some spots in this track where they've obviously watered it before this race. That really has to play to the four-wheel drive advantage.
It certainly does. When you got four wheels to pull through all that water, and it is slicker in those portions, and you can see the rocks coming out the back of those things, too. So if you're behind them, you're going to get hit with those rocks.
And let's see, Douglas also now has gone by, and Greaves is by as well, and Taylor right now, well, he's feeling it right now because last year he had that lead early on and was able to open it up. But you can see he's driving so hard right now, and every time you hit one of those berms and banks, you're scrubbing speed.
Yeah, you are scrubbing speed, and he's fallen back so far now, it's going to be awfully hard for him to come back. Meanwhile, Jason Baldwin and Kurt Leduc, guess what these guys are up to? These guys have been battling hard all weekend long. This could turn out to be another one of those crash them up, bang them up type deals.
Yeah, and there's Greaves, who's sitting back in about fifth. There's Renesetter in third right now on board there, and you can just look at the launch out of that turn, and that's exactly what they were talking about. And right now we got four-wheel drive trucks 1 through 5.
Yes, and your four-wheel drive trucks, the bad thing about them is there's always more mechanics that can go wrong.
Well, that's something that we'll have to watch for. This is a 10-lap all-out sprint, and Jason Baldwin currently leads it.
Speed.
We are back at Crandon International Off-Road Raceway, the Potowatomi Precision Gear Governor's Cup, and it is still the number 66 of Jason Baldwin, the Ford BF Goodrich tires, leading this one. But look who's right behind him, Kurt LeDuc, two-time winner of this. Would love to get that third one. And then the rest of the pack comes streaming through. And right here is Scott Taylor. Sits in the 7th spot right now, chasing Josh Baldwin.
Yes, he got behind there pretty early, and when that big crash happened down there on the backside. And once he got back there, he hasn't been able to claw his way back around these guys. Meanwhile,
oh! That was Johnny Greaves. Sorry, Larry, but I thought he was going over.
Well, he almost did. He got way up on that bank. He got so low. You want to cut the corners tight, but you can't get so low that you lose it and get up on it like that. It almost turned him over. Meanwhile, down there in that very wet corner with it, we just saw everybody sliding very wide. Nobody had a chance to sneak under anybody else.
Good look there, Carl Renasetter. It looks like that decision to go with the Pro 4 truck, even though the Pro 2 was broken and kind of made it a moot point, still, he's right in the hunt. And look at that, as LeDuc doing everything he can to find any fast piece of racetrack.
Baldwin got very sideways. LeDuc tried to get under him, but he darted back to the inside of the racetrack. LeDuc had to go up and over the bank and almost got in trouble doing that, and Renasetter caught him and almost got around him.
Douglas right there in 4th. I mean, we've got ourselves a good pack here. That the proverbial blanket being thrown over pretty much. There's Baldwin. There goes LeDuc. There's Renasetter. There's Douglas. And just because of Greaves' near rollover, he's back. Oh! And Scott Taylor is not giving up. He just went by one of the four-wheel drive trucks. That's Josh Baldwin, and picks up 6th.
That was basically a momentum thing. He made a very smooth corner, and once he got around him with that straightaway speed, he did well. What, we got some smoke coming out here?
That's LeDuc, and he's showing some serious smoke.
Yeah, that's not a good thing. That's way too much smoke for this early in the race. Renasetter sees it, and he's on the hunt. He's trying to get him.
Now, I was going to ask you, you talked about that pass that Taylor put on, and it looked like, and Larry, this is something you know a thing or two about, the old slide job pass. And I mean, that's really what he's got to do.
Well, and in this kind of race, you do anything you have to do. I mean, it has to be a slide job. It can be anything you want. But you've got to make every move, every opportunity, because you're only going to get a couple of chances. These guys aren't going to make very many mistakes. And if you've got a chance to get around them, you better do it right then.
Oh, as Scott Douglas said, if you're going to win, you got to be an animal. And that's what's unfolding right here in Crandon. Don't go anywhere.
The hits are supercharged.
4-second lead. Keep pushing.
Well, that says an awful lot as we come back here to Crandon. With all the battling going on behind, Jason has been able to just sort of eke away a little bit.
Yes, he has, and Kurt LeDuc has followed back. Carl Renasetter is all over him. He's having to do a little bit of defensive driving to keep Renasetter behind him, and when you're doing that, you're not running at your best speed.
Now I want to ask you something. Jason Baldwin certainly has shown speed, but he looks like a different driver to me, and that difference, I think, happened when he outran and outmuscled that guy who's smoking there, LeDuc, in that 5th round at Crandon. I think Jason Baldwin now thinks, hey, I belong.
That's right. He believes in himself. He believes that he can run with the tall dogs, and he proved it, and now then he's very confident that he can do it every time he gets in that truck.
Meanwhile, look at this move here. Renasetter trying to get underneath LeDuc. No, nothing going there. But look at the move by Douglas, trying to double up and sneak by Renasetter. He couldn't quite get that done. That corner is still mighty slippery on the exit, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is, and you can see that Douglas, you can't make any mistake. Anybody that makes a mistake, somebody's going to try to make a move on you. Meanwhile, this is really helping Baldwin as these guys all battling each other, and Baldwin moves away.
And you know what? Not just us and the fans are interested in this, but Ken Stout has caught up with another very interested party.
When you come to Crandon at a CORR event, you just never know who you might find. A lot of you hardcore fans out there and desert fans are very familiar with the name Frank Scoop Vessels. Well, his son, Cash, showed up here at Crandon, one of our CORR events, of course. Nice to have you with us here. What in the world are you doing, dude?
Well, I'm just kind of snooping around a little bit and getting to know everybody and schmoozing and kind of get a lay of the land and a feel for the whole situation.
I know you had a chance to watch round number 5. What did you think of the racing?
I thought it was great racing. I've been around racing all my life, and that was one of the most intense races I've seen in a long time.
If you were to climb inside of a truck in a division here, any feel for what it would be? Pro Light, Pro 2, Pro 4?
I'm not sure yet. I'm just kind of snooping around and getting to know people and weighing the options and come up with something maybe a little later.
That's a real politically correct answer, dude. Are you running for office?
Well, I'm not sure what I want to do at this point. You know, I'm just kind of checking everything out. And this is the first CORR event I've ever been to. Always heard about it and followed it on TV, but I decided to come in and take a look around.
Well, I think that's about all we're going to get out of him for now. We'll find out what division he jumps in sooner or later, but certainly would be great to have the Vessels Racing family here with us.
Oh, wouldn't that be the truth? To add that name to the litany of the great names racing in CORR would be absolutely fantastic, as is this race. And all of this is exactly what, you don't even see Baldwin in the picture anymore, except on the wide shots. He is driving such a smooth race, and these guys are so absolutely intense behind him, Larry.
Yeah. These guys all trying to make a move, all trying to move up.
5-second lead.
There you hear it, 5 full seconds.
5 full seconds, so he's pulled out about another 3/4 of a second since the last radio transmission we heard. So he is walking away. But now it looks like Kurt Leduc has a little bit of a lead over Renazetter, so he may be able to drive more or less his own race and do some catching up.
Well, I wonder what that smoke would be coming out of Leduc's truck, as it certainly hasn't affected his speed right now.
No, it doesn't appear to be out of the engine. My first thought was that it might be power steering fluid, but if it is power steering fluid, then it's going to affect the handling of that truck pretty soon.
Now you hear all the radio traffic. Run your line. Don't worry about it. Do what you need to do. And look, here comes Renazetter again. He's tried this before and again. Oh, what a move by Leduc, and what courtesy by Renazetter. He could have turned a little bit, just tapped him. He's racing him clean.
Kurt gets in very wide so that he gets off the corner low and fast. That's what he's trying to do, make a longer straightaway. So far it's worked. Now we see Evan Evans. He's got a flat tire, and that's the result. He spins that baby out.
Yeah, absolutely no bite on that crucial outside left rear. So, as we're closing in on the end of this one, Jason Baldwin easing away from Leduc, Renazetter, Douglas, and Greaves.
Owning the road just got a lot more affordable.
Subaru, driven by what's inside.
Inside every...
We're back at Grandin, and the battle continues. There's a look at Johnny Greaves, and frankly, Larry, I'm a little surprised that he hasn't been able to do just a bit more here.
Yeah, he's been kind of stuck back there in 5th place. You see Renazetter once again trying to get under Kurt Leduc. Those two guys have done battle for the last several laps.
Baldwin is slowing, Larry. Oh, and he's pulled off. Unbelievable.
Well, that is exactly why Kurt Leduc was doing what he was doing earlier. He was trying to protect his position in case there was any mechanical failure in front of him. So far, his strategies worked very well, and he's leading this race right now.
He's leading the race, and he's
second place. You're in second place right now.
All right, that's Renazetter's spotter telling him now it's second. This is for second. You're battling for the lead. And again.
And he darn well knows who's leading this baby. As he goes to the outside, he did a great job. That's a long way around out there. He almost made it work, but in the end, he had to fall right in behind him.
Boy, Kurt Leduc just, he drove that. Oh, has he got a tire going down?
Yeah, I think he does. That right front looks like it might be going down. That's going to make it very difficult for him. But so far, maybe he's been going down for a while. Oh, no. There he can't turn it. He's going to lose that spot pretty soon.
Yeah, it's definitely starting to lose it. And that means, and Renazetter's going to know it. The spotters are going to tell him.
Well, you know, so far, Kurt Leduc, look at that. It is going down. So he can go through the right-handers, but those left-handers, like this next one, it's going to be very difficult for him to get that truck turned. He's going to have to use the turning brakes and everything to keep that thing on the bottom side and then get a straight shot off the corner.
Well, that's exactly it, isn't it? He's got to do everything he can, basically, to get that rotated without leaning on that right front tire. And boy, he did it.
Yeah, it's not flat yet, but it is losing air, and if it keeps losing it the way it is right now, it's going to be flat for much longer. But what a terrific job just to hang on to the lead with a tire that's that low.
Well, and that explains maybe why Baldwin was easing away and why these three trucks were packed up behind him. Here comes...
You can see those guys back there, he's holding them up, and they're running into each other. So he's hoping maybe there'll be a crash behind him and take him out. And so far, that hasn't happened. But Douglas did get into the back of Renazetter just a second ago.
Here comes Renazetter again, and LeDuc covers. And I think LeDuc's got an awesome strategy into that tight left-hander because he stays way inside straight line brakes.
Oh,
there it is, and he saves it.
He did exactly what he had to do. He went in wide, came out on the bottom, and still kept the lead. That's a great job.
Kurt LeDuc's right front is starting to wobble more.
There's Renazetter's spotter giving him a little more encouragement, saying the leader's in trouble. Renazetter's got the bit between his teeth. We'll come back. Welcome back to Crandon, Wisconsin for the Potowatomi Precision Gear Governor's Cup Challenge. We are closing in on the end of this one. Very close indeed, and I'll tell you, Kurt LeDuc has driven what I think is a brilliant race. And Larry, here's the line that I'm talking about. Normally he'd float out a little bit, but he's trying to eliminate leaning on that right side tire that's deflating. He just gets in tight, pinches it around the outside, forces everybody to go wide or follow suit. He has driven as brilliantly as you can with a wounded truck.
Absolutely. Carl Renazetter is slowing. He's got trouble. As you can see, Johnny Greaves had to go way wide to miss him. He's pulling off the course. What a tough break for Carl Renazetter.
I don't see no smoke, nothing like that. You have to wonder if a gearbox snapped or a drive line or something.
Well, this is the survival of the finish. You have to not only be fast, you've got to survive. So far, Kurt LeDuc, as you said, has done a masterful job. He's driven that truck, even though it's a little bit wounded. He's done a terrific job keeping it in front of all the competitors.
And the one break he got was when Renazetter had his problem. It caught everybody behind them, had to check up just a little bit, and LeDuc got, I mean, a critical 4 or 5 truck lengths out.
Yes, and that might be the 4 or 5 truck lengths that it takes for him to win this race, because as long as he's making left-hand corners, he's okay. But when he's making, when he's making right-hand corners, he's okay. But when he's making those left-handers and that right front's a little bit flat, it's very difficult for him.
And I would imagine one of the best things he could do, too, is to try and keep that tire spinning so that it doesn't lock up and slow down. And I mean, there you can see it just doesn't give him much bite, but he just keeps it taped.
It just plows on him. These fast corners are much worse than the slow corners. The slow ones, as you said, this corner right here, for instance, he can get that thing stopped, keep it to the inside, and just putt around. But on those big fast corners to the left-hand side, he really has to use that right front tire, and he doesn't want to use it up. He doesn't want to knock the rest of the air out of that thing.
Now we are expecting to see the white flag this time by last lap. And boy, that tire's really starting to give it up. And he's got to be inside that truck just going, oh, please, 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 please.
Yeah, look at Douglas. He's all over the back of him right there as he is trying everything. He knows he's wounded. He sees the smoke coming out of that thing. He sees that front tire. They're telling him that it's going down on him. But so far, nobody's had anything to get around him. Look at the smoke coming out of that right front.
And that's basically the tires now starting to spin on the rim, and the wheel is the friction. Unbelievable. Oh, and here comes Greaves. Greaves.
All righty.
Uh-oh.
What did he say? Pop the tranny?
He lost the tranny.
Oh.
That was Dot Douglas that says we lost the tranny. So even though, you know, LeDuc's having all kinds of trouble and the right front tire is smoking, going to blow off of the rim here pretty shortly. Looks like the only guy's even close to him right now is Johnny Greaves.
Well, yeah, as he's needed a break, he's been getting him from behind. And
oh, look at that thing.
The tire is shredding. It's starting to shred.
He's running on the inner liner, and that's all that's left right now.
Greaves is there. Greaves is going to be relentless.
Keep it tight here. Keep it tight.
Telling him, keep it tight, keep it tight, keep it tight. Greaves is going to just try and go all the way around the outside. Greaves is going to go for it. He gasses it.
Oh!
And he got it. Johnny Greaves just set him up outside and let it ramp around.
There's absolutely nothing Kurt LeDuc can do. Oh,
he dives to the inside.
He tags it. Is he spinning around? No. He didn't spin him. Oh, what a race.
Unbelievable. And Greaves takes the win. And it was a great drive, but there is no doubt that results but it was just a phenomenal race. And who knows if Jason Baldwin hadn't had problems, how he may have fared in this one as well. But it's Johnny Greaves' day, and he's in our Trailmaster Suspension winner's circle.
Johnny Greaves, what a fabulous job. You've never won a race here at Crandon in a Pro 4 truck. You wait for the biggest one of the year. A battle. There's 4 of you guys, just an absolute dogfight. Did you think you were going to get around everybody, man? You're number 4 in the pile.
Yeah, you know, it wasn't looking good. They kept counting the laps down, and I'm going, I don't know what to tell you guys. I can't do nothing. I mean, they were all battling amongst themselves, and I was looking for the hole, and, you know, when they would hit one another, it would give me a little room to squeeze in there, and one thing led to another. It couldn't have been a prettier picture, though. The last lap, 2 flat tires. Kurt was fighting one on the front. I was fighting one on the back, and, I mean, we hit everything we could wide open. There was just holding nothing back, and the main point is the Toyota held up the BF Goodrich tires, and these Forest County Potowatomi people are pumped. They're going to get their trophy to take home, the one they deserved last year.
Congratulations. That's right. It was very close last year. Excellent job, man.
Thanks a lot. And I want to thank everybody for coming out here. These people are great. Awesome track, and man, it was a good weekend.
You just never know, guys. You got to hang in there to the end. That's what he did. Brings home a win here with the Governor's Cup.
Absolutely, and I mean, you can never say die, and obviously he had, as I said, a couple of guys fall out in front of him, and he knew the guy way in front was wounded, and he was up to it.
He was very persistent. He didn't give up, and there you can see that big check. He's going to take that baby home. He'll give them the trophy and take the money.
Yep, $18,000 there, and then if you include contingencies, over $20,000. Remember, the total was $30,000 for the purse. He did okay. Precision Gear driver points after 6 of 14 rounds. Taylor leads it by only 2 over Huseman, then Kincaid, then Johnny Greaves right there, and Carl Renesetter. And then here's 6th through 10th, and Steve Federico rounds out that top 10. Now it's time for the Skyjacker suspension shock of the race, and I'm not sure how much of a shock it was, but it certainly was a disappointment. But it was this last lap moment between then leader Kurt Leduc and a fast-closing Johnny Greaves.
Well, he did everything he could to save that right front tire, but in the end, it came up 1 corner short of lasting long enough, because when that thing went completely flat, he's on the inner liner. Johnny Greaves did exactly what he had to do. He went around the outside, he gassed that thing off the corner, and he held it to the finish line.
And it looked to me, I didn't notice it before, that Greaves in that long arcing right-hander, it's so hard on that tire, or that left-hander, maybe was pushing Kurt Leduc a little bit, working that tire, causing him to lose some momentum. It was a great strategy either way, and it turned out certainly a shock for Kurt Leduc of the negative type, and a positive shock for Johnny Greaves. Kumho Tires Rookie of the Year standings after 6 of 14 rounds in Championship Off-Road Racing. Chris Hansen leads it by 7 over Barlow. Pagels and Kendall tied for 3rd, and Stacy Pike rounds out that top 5. We also want to remind you that if you didn't get enough of CORR action here and Governor's Cup action here, you can always find out a little bit more on speedtv.com, or for that matter, anything about racing, your 24-hour online source. Where are they taking Mr. Greaves here? The Potowatomis have him on the, uh-oh.
He's going to take a little bit of a dive here, nose dive right into the water.
That's a baptism by fire, I think. Congratulations to Johnny Greaves. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Take care.